Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is the first time a test kitchen meeting has been done with Google Hangouts. So it's kind of an experiment, and we'll just kind of see how this goes. And our special guest today is Burt Herman, who is actually in New York right now, but his company Storify is in San Francisco. And so just real quick background on Burt. He's probably most well known currently as the co-founder of Storify, which builds tools for journalists, bloggers, and anyone to make stories curating the social web. He's also the founder of Hacks and Hackers, and a lot of us here, we go to the local Denver Boulder Hacks Hackers group meetings, so we're all pretty familiar with that. Burt was also a Knight Journalism Fellow at Stanford in 2008 and 2009. And prior to that, did some pretty cool stuff. Was a bureau chief and correspondent for the AP in the US, Europe, Soviet Union, the Middle East, and Asia. Was an embedded reporter with the Marines and the Air Force during the 2003 Iraq War, and has covered fighting in northern Afghanistan and the US military buildup in Central Asia. So pretty cool career. So maybe, Burt, maybe I'll just kind of let you just start talking a little bit, and I'm sure we'll all have tons of questions, and hopefully some other folks will come in.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot for having me. It's cool to do this Google Hangout. Yeah, so I guess that maybe explains a little bit of where I'm coming from with Storify and what I've been doing. I guess I'll talk mainly about that, but also happy to talk about hacks and hackers and media and technology in general. I mean, really, this came out of thinking about the AP and what would the AP be if you were to create it today from scratch? How would you report on the world? And now through social media, I mean, obviously every person on the ground can potentially be a reporter. I mean, through smartphones, Wi-Fi, Twitter, Flickr, YouTube, whatever it is, whatever comes next, you can get reports on the ground, which is great, but it also is very noisy, very confusing. There's lots of obviously rumors and untruths. So what we need still more than ever is this journalistic layer, a curation layer on top of social media to help make sense of the world. So that's where Storify comes out of, is trying to make it really easy for journalists or bloggers or whoever to curate social media, to find the best of what's out there, and to add context to it, to build a story. So to add their own text to that, to frame it in a context and do fact-checking, be critical about what they see and create stories. And that's kind of the yeah, we also really wanted to think about how to reinvent a story and journalism, and not just take what's out there in print and put it online. We really feel that even blogging, blogging is still fundamentally built like print, in that you create a post, you post it, and it's there. It's a static thing. You're done with it. Whereas, obviously the internet is dynamic. You can change and update things. It's interactive. So we wanted to create a story format that is dynamic like that, and we accomplished that by having Storify be something that can basically be embedded anywhere. So you can take your story after you put together, tweets, photos, videos, text, and put it on other sites. And when you update your story, it'll be updated everywhere. And we really intend to do much more with that in the future, to really show that stories are live and can be updated, and just constantly think about how we can reinvent the article in that way. And also along with that is to really, look at social media as not just a source for all this material, but also a way to reach people and to create, a story that gets spread in social media. So what we have in Storify is an early implementation of that. We're going to expand much more in it, which we call it a social pingback. So if you quote somebody's tweet, in your story, we can let you with one click send @replies, and it'll basically tell everybody that they're now part of the story. And people love that, and they spread that to their followers and retweet it and say thanks, and really creates this virtuous cycle of an article as the start of a conversation. Again, with the aim that hopefully then they'll contribute more. Then you can bring that back into the article, keep building the article. We really think this idea of a story is something that that is really is meaningful, and it shouldn't necessarily be based on the old 24-hour cycle basically of a newspaper being published, which has been the case. The stories can be things that go on for days and days or weeks. I mean, you could have an issue like today with the SOPA PIPA protests. I mean, obviously this is just the culmination of weeks of people talking about it and sites announcing their boycotts, and now today's sites blacking out and then protests, and then we'll see what happens with it going forward. I mean, that story is not just today there was a protest, and then again newspapers would write the same story tomorrow and recap in one paragraph the history of what happened, and just constantly be kind of doing the same thing. Actually, this story is this larger issue. So we believe that should, we can do that on the internet. We don't have to be bound to the printing press cycle. So let's let stories live and be, these topics that grow and really help us understand things in an interactive, dynamic way, rather than just, be stuck with the old way of doing things.
Yeah. Hey, Bert, I got a question. I'm wondering what kind of reception that you have been getting from, say, some of the more traditional media. And so I was kind of looking around for some of the better Storifys, and there was one recently from, I think it was the Washington Post style section, and they just did a Storify of the Golden Globes, and it was mostly sort of fashion. I think it may have been the fashion editor sort of commenting on the styles of the stars, and of course, there were pictures from all different types of sources, and they did embed it on a page, and that's a great use, and I'm happy to see that. I'm just curious what kind of reception you're getting from different types of media outlets.
Yeah, no, we've been getting great reception. I mean, it's generally been by the kind of early adopters in newsrooms, so the social media editors, people whose job it is to basically experiment with new things. They've been really receptive. And the great thing about the way we architected the system is that because it's just a story, you can use Storify, you can embed it on your site. You don't need to go to your IT staff and get some, permission or have them do some integration with APIs or mess with their backend. As long as a journalist can embed a video on their site, they can embed Storify on their site. They can use Storify. They don't need to get permission from anybody. That's been like a huge key thing in getting people to use it, basically. So still, I mean, we could do much more. We want to do much more. I mean, the trick is getting from the social media editors and the early adopters, really getting all journalists to think that this is part of what they do. But again, writing for, we're just now, the journalists are getting into writing for the web, right, and blogging, but, being on top of social media, monitoring what people are saying on their beat, looking at what's happening online on all different networks. I really feel that's a crucial role for any journalist covering something. And as long as you're doing that, why not then also, start curating things and pointing out what people are saying and incorporate that into your storytelling in a way where it's really an authentic way that you're really showing the person's voice. I mean, now it's not just calling up and putting something in quotes in your story. You can actually directly pull the tweet from, President Obama, or the video that's put out by, whatever company talking about something, the Instagram photo, the protesters on the ground, wherever it might be. I mean, you can get those real voices in there linking to that, and that really creates something that we think is more dynamic and engaging than just a regular text article.
I have a ton of questions, but I also don't want to hog it. So, and then anybody else want to go? Okay, maybe I need to go. Maybe I need to go. Well, let's see. Another question that I thought was kind of might be interesting is the idea of long-form journalism. A lot of the Storifys that I've seen have generally been predominantly the social media elements with maybe like one little sentence that introducing a social media element. But I wonder if you foresee or have seen anybody experiment with long form journalism using the platform?
Yeah, that happens. And I mean, I guess long form in terms of just really long stories. I don't know if I'd call them long form journalism, but exactly. But for example, like Anthony DeRosa, who's the social media editor at Reuters, put together a really long story where he basically summarized the year of protests across the world through social media. And put together this massive Storify story where he searched, from Egypt to Tunisia to, Yemen, Syria, whatever, Occupy, all the protests across the world, and pulled together all the highlights of what people are saying and the key moments, and created this, massive kind of chronicle of that, which again is really great because it's not. I mean, there's so much stuff out there on social media that it all gets lost very quickly. So taking these things and preserving them in a way where you can actually make sense of it and going forward actually, see what happened, look back on that as a record of what happened, that's pretty valuable. So that's we have seen some experimentation on that. We also need to work. I mean, right now our story display is not necessarily optimal for really long stories because you kind of scroll and scroll and scroll and keeps going, becomes really huge. So that's something we need to address too, is making sure we make stories look as good as they can, no matter what the format. Maybe if it's something really short that doesn't even have text added. Maybe if it's really long, thinking of ways to do that.
One of the things that I've been interested in when it comes to curation and issues related to that are when people try to unwrite their history. In other words, they get caught saying or doing something that came out wrong. And I'm just wondering, have you run into any cases where your tools have come up against someone trying to do that? In other words, you've captured something they've tried to take out of the system, or I keep waiting for moments like that with different tool sets to kind of see how much control people have over their own cultural creation. I was wondering if you had any cases like that.
Yeah, I mean, so when somebody takes a tweet and puts it in Storify, we actually store the text of it too. So if it's deleted, like it still would be in Storify. And I'm kind of blanking right now in a situation where that it has happened, where people have tweeted things, then deleted them, and told people, well, you can still find it in my Storify story what they said. I mean, our view is just like in journalism, like quoting something that somebody says, if they say it in public, it's out there. They've said it, so that you can't really take it back. Right. I mean, you can go back and add on to that if you want to. But yeah, that's what we think. So yeah, we do think it's valuable to preserve that. We have had some cases for video too, where we're only embedding video. We're not actually saving the real video. So there's been cases where people pulled down a video. And the one I'm thinking of is like that, the man with the golden voice, this homeless guy in Ohio who was discovered, and some local TV station, I believe, had a video, and somebody put it on YouTube, but the station didn't like it, so it got taken down. It actually still was kept in the story, and the person who wrote the story wrote about that, just said, there was a video here, the station took it down, but I'm just leaving the embedded video to show where it was. So, I mean, I think, yeah, we believe very much that, we are able to capture these things which might otherwise disappear. But not that, the public record would be preserved.
Well, here's another maybe more practical question. Just two parts. I mean, one is what type of stories are really sort of best suited for this. Obviously, as journalists today, we can choose from different platforms. We could choose the best platform for the particular story that we're doing. So what types of stories do you think are sort of best suited for this? And then can go along with that, maybe there's some examples of ones that you think were especially good or especially effective or powerful. And I mean, I guess Occupy is the obvious one, but maybe there's some other ideas you have.
Yeah, Occupy was certainly good. I mean, because it was a big story that involved lots of people, lots of different locations. So anything like that involves a lot of people, where a lot of people are reacting to it. I mean, whether it's weather or a protest or some kind of earthquake or natural disaster, I mean, it's something where there's a lot of people taking part. I mean, I don't know if it would be very good for covering like a conference, for example, where not many people are there and there's just kind of one narrative of what's happening. So, so it's good for that. I mean, in terms of finding reactions and elements of what's out there. It's also actually another interesting use, which we didn't predict or plan necessarily, is people using it as a way to kind of engage with an audience, like to actually put something out there and say, you know, hey everybody, we're collecting. I mean, in the case of one site, like, you know, send us photos of what you cooked this weekend at home, like meals you ate. Send us pictures of that. We'll pick the best ones and we'll put it on our site. I mean, people doing things like that. Like actually, the White House used us as an engagement tool when they were doing this $40 campaign, where they were asking people to tweet using the hashtag $40, trying to push, you know, Congress to extend this payroll tax incentive. So they, you know, they said, send us your best, you know, stories. What are you going to use the $40 for? Use hashtag $40, and we'll take all the best ones and we'll put them together in Storify, and we'll put it back on our site. So, I mean, the White House was even doing it for that. So kind of like as a way to engage people, almost through like a contest or a poll with their audience, and then picking the best things and kind of controlling what actually gets published on your site. That's been a really interesting use of it too.
Oh no. Okay, so Dennis, do you want to write your questions and show it to the camera?
Well, there is a group.
Oh yeah, there's a group chat thing on the side. Dennis, if you look on the left side, can you like send us a group chat and then we can say what your question is? Well, obviously you can't answer. Oh, that's too bad. Well, while Dennis is maybe writing an answer to us, or a question to us, another one that I was thinking of was, you know, the tool is really easy to use. I encourage, you know, our grad students to give it a try. I think at least a couple of them did. I know I've used it. It's incredibly easy. So it's sort of, and it's very much painted as a tool for journalists. So I wonder, you know, what advantage do journalists have to really creating good Storifys to create good journalism? You know, are we any better suited than the rest of the world, the non-journalists?
This part, like the key part of what you just asked, could you repeat that again? You said it was mainly for journalists, but then what did you say? Dennis, your microphone is working. I can hear you typing, actually, just so you know.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you're talking?
yeah, we can hear you.
Well, there goes my cover. I was going to ask about distribution. How do you integrate Storify into other products?
Yeah, so like I said, it's embeddable. So basically, you can embed Storify into a WordPress blog, Tumblr, Posterous, you know, Drupal. You can send it out by email. You can put it on, you know, it's been embedded on the New York Times, WhiteHouse.gov, the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal.
Now, is the reverse also true? Are all Storify threads visible in one spot?
And so the stories are all on Storify, or you can embed them elsewhere. So it's like YouTube, basically, is kind of the way to describe it. Like YouTube has all the videos that people upload to YouTube, but they can also be embeddable on other sites.
Now, is it also able to be made private?
Not yet, no. Some people have asked us for that, so it's definitely something we're thinking about. And it's been, to be honest, it's mostly like brands and PR people who want to make private stories. So in terms of thinking of business models, that's one thing we are thinking about as a pro feature that we could charge for.
So it's a tool without a business model.
I mean, right now it's totally free.
Do you have anticipation of business models being emergent in
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously we do need to figure it out at some point, but I mean, right now the main focus has been more getting usage and figuring out what the best product would be. But that's one business model that I mentioned, like a free, pro features for certain people. And the other thing would be advertising, which basically, we think about the way, again, Twitter has promoted tweets, YouTube has kind of in-stream ads. We're kind of looking at basically a hybrid of those two things, which would be essentially promoted story elements in the story. And because we let you incorporate any social media, we could actually let you use anything as a promoted story element. To say, EA Sports has a video about some, new football game they have. They could promote their YouTube video as a promoted element in somebody's story. And the idea would be to share, revenue or credits or something with the writers who are putting together the story.
Is there any community among the Storify users?
We're working on making it better. Right now, you can subscribe to other users and get updates from them. You can also look at other people's stories and take elements from their stories and use them in your stories. And the idea is that they should get credited and notified that they've something they found has been used in another story. So we definitely want to build a lot more of that because since now we do have more and more people creating stories, we actually are starting to get a pretty interesting data set where when a big news event happens, like for example when Steve Jobs died, we had more than 100 stories by major news organizations all talking about that, all quoting people from Twitter, and we were able to see who were the most quoted people on Twitter about Steve Jobs dying, and look at the data around that. So you can start figuring out, okay, if something happens related to Steve Jobs or Apple, who are the most quoted? Who are the people who are authorities on this who get quoted? I mean, what if I'm doing a story that day? What should I be looking at? So we can start hopefully using the data from the community to help people tell better stories.
So here's another question. We've got, I think there's only 5 of us, and I know there were some people who said they were going to be here and aren't, so maybe they didn't find their way to this Hangout or couldn't figure it out or something. But one of them who expressed an interest in joining was one of our advertising professors, and so maybe on her behalf, I'd love to ask if, obviously a lot of companies are have pretty good social media strategies, social marketing, and I'm wondering if you've seen any of them creating maybe their own Storifys.
Yeah, no, we've seen, I mean, really early on, actually a while ago, we had Levi's using Storify to do sort of this contest type thing that I mentioned. They had a campaign around women and set up a whole site around women talking about their dreams and aspirations and connecting them with mentors, and they started this hashtag shape what's to come, and we're using Storify to curate the responses to that. So we've seen that. We've seen, we've been used by Dell, Salesforce, Virgin, IBM, Adobe, all sorts of brands who are kind of just curating the conversation around their brands and trying to, show that they're active on social media. So definitely there's use there for that. And again, as we think about the business model, we try to think of how can we keep things free and open for journalists and people who are creating stories for the public good that inform about the issues of the world, but figuring out how we can charge the brands to be who want to use this to more reach customers.
Anybody else want to dive in? Rebecca, we haven't heard from you.
Well, I guess just going off of that last question, how do you draw the line between PR and journalism on Storify if companies like Levi's are able to get on there and create stories about just their brand? It seems like they're just reaching out to customers. It's not really adding much journalistic content to Storify. So I guess, do you draw a line, or is it just completely open?
We don't want to be editing, who's writing about what. We definitely feature certain things. So we kind of pick, today we are featuring all stories about SOPA on our homepage, just because that's obviously like the big issue online today. And check that we have a bunch of people like Mashable and some others who are creating stories about what's happening. So I guess it's kind of that. Yeah, Al Jazeera. Who else is on here? Yeah, UPI. Yeah. So I mean, we don't want to necessarily like be editing that or monitoring that, but basically things that are of broader interest kind of do rise to the top because it is something that more people want to read about, and basically we kind of do the way we do our topics is kind of based on the hashtags that are in stories. So if it's a hashtag that's getting like wide use because lots of people are talking about it and it's a bigger issue, then it kind of rises to the top in our system. So we kind of think about more ways that we can let that happen naturally rather than being like top-down editing things. Who knows? I mean, in the future we might do more editing where we have people creating topics on different things. I mean, that's kind of interesting. You see a lot of web like platforms which started off purely as technology, then they realized, oh, we do actually need some kind of editorial oversight here. Like Tumblr has talked about doing stuff lately to create topic channels and all that. I mean, I come from very much like the journalism background, but I know to do a technology company to make something scalable, you can't hire a bunch of editors, start editing things right off, but I could definitely see that in the future being a direction we're going.
Is a similar issue with promotion? For example, is Storify, the organization, going to have a role in promoting the Storify, the users? Promoting traffic, promoting content, promoting channels? Or are you just there as a tool?
No. Well, I mean, we want to help people get an audience. I mean, including people who might not normally have a huge site to embed their story on. And we've actually seen that happen in really amazing ways. We have a lot of students who have used Storify, who really have kind of embraced it and just get how to business on it without even us doing any training or anything. I think just younger people kind of naturally swim in social media and they're used to dealing with a lot of different media sources at the same time and creating great things. And we had a student who created a story on the Occupy Wall Street camp being broken up in New York. That story by that student was actually embedded on the Washington Post because they liked what they did, put it on WashingtonPost.com. So we're promoting things on our homepage, and we encourage people take this great story from some student, from whoever they like, and embed it on your site to give that person an audience that they might not have otherwise had. So we definitely really do believe in that.
So maybe eventually your business model is charging the media outlets for usage.
We could do that. I mean, I guess if there was an ad embedded in that story that then we shared the revenue to the person who created it, I mean, that would be a way too. I mean, if they write something that's good enough that the Washington Post picks up and they get much more traffic because of that, then they should benefit from that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could also imagine the Washington Post sort of putting out a freelance job for somebody to create a Storify for them, or maybe crowdsourcing the best one and offering to pay for it, something like that.
Are you interested in having partnerships with media organizations like newspapers or broadcasters to position your product as tools that they use in their subscriber relationships and news gathering, rather than having it positioned as something that individuals do by themselves, hoping to be noticed?
Well, I mean, it is being used by media organizations. I mean, just individuals in media organizations. We talk to editors and everything there. We don't want to. We've been a little wary of getting in like a B2B relationship where we're a vendor to a media company, because then it's like, like selling enterprise software, and we'd have to do a lot of specialized development for like one site to get them to integrate with us. And I mean, again, that gets away from being really scalable as a platform. So that's why, again, we want to, make things easy for them to integrate us, like embedding a story. They can do it now on any site, but we've kind of been reluctant to go down that road to like sell to media companies, given that obviously, I mean, they're really conservative. They're kind of slow to make decisions. They are in a business that is kind of declining, right? So we don't really want to bet our future on that model.
So here's maybe a slightly off-kilter question. Thinking back to your earlier career, and it looks like, hopefully you're still there, you had a really fascinating career as a war correspondent before most of this stuff was around, of course, well before Storify was around. I'm curious if you were doing that today, what social media tools you might use, or how you would use social media to perform that job, whether using Storify or take a broader and maybe some other things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not sure for collecting information how good it would have been, because I spent a lot of time in countries where there was not, freedom of information, not good internet access at all, or anything like that. I mean, I lived for a couple of years in Uzbekistan. I was around Central Asia reporting on all these scanned countries, and I think it would have been quite hard to, I mean, people are not able to freely communicate in those countries. I mean, there is no free media. So I guess I probably would have liked to use it more to just distribute things, although, I mean, it would have been interesting. I worked for the AP, and the AP has been very, cautious about letting reporters kind of go straight to social media without going through the AP first. What I think is it's a real lost opportunity, because journalists leave so much on the cutting room floor. And I think through social media and these newer tools like Storify or any kind of live blogging platform, period, I mean, you can actually use much more of the output of a journalist. I mean, I would spend a couple days traveling around just to write one story that might run in a couple of weeks on the wire, a feature story, whereas it might be much more interesting to kind of follow people around and really kind of live, experience what it's like to live in another country through the eyes of the journalist who's there. He can explain a good context of what's going on. So I think that would have been really exciting to me to use more as a tool to kind of, not leave so much on the cutting room floor, but to kind of get out there all the work that I was doing.
Well, let's see. How about maybe you could talk a little bit about, if you can, sort of what is next for Storify, but also I think in the description of your company, it says you are, all about building tools for journalists. So I'm wondering if that means that there are some other tools that you might be working on. I don't know if you can tell us anything about that, but I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think really what we want to, what we aim to do is to make it even easier, and maybe as we were talking about, I mean, it's not just for journalists, it's for brands have been using it, companies have been using it, politicians and the White House have been using it, but we think also there's a huge opportunity for normal people to tell stories with their own social media. So we really do want to do a lot more with Facebook. I mean, we've been a lot focused on Twitter because that's more of the public place, and obviously the place where journalists are, but we think we can do much more with Facebook to make things, to let people tell stories using their content and what their friends post on Facebook. So we want to do that. Want to make it really like a clicking simple thing. I mean, we have a drag and drop interface. It's pretty simple, but still people want to just click a few things and then have it look gorgeous. Like you can take a photo with Instagram and you apply a filter and it looks amazing. But we need to get to that level of simplicity, which means really stripping things down, cutting back even further, and rethinking what it means to tell a story even more. So that's kind of a big direction that we're focusing on this year.
Okay.
Am I frozen here?
Anybody else?
You are frozen.
Yeah, he's frozen.
Can you hear me?
No, we can
Yeah,
hear
we
you.
hear-
Your image is just frozen. Yep, you're there. I wouldn't see if anybody else had any more Storify questions. The other fascinating thing that Burt, of course, has done is found hacks and hackers. So thought maybe we just talk about that a little bit too, but see if anybody else had any other Storify questions before we move on. Or comments or anything?
I have to leave for class shortly, so I'll be dropping out in a minute.
Alrighty, well maybe we could just talk very briefly about hacks and hackers. Bert, I don't know if you want to maybe say anything a little bit about that. I gather that it's grown quite a bit because I think it just started being envisioned as primarily a U.S. thing, but now it's pretty much worldwide, right?
Yeah, we have chapters in London and Argentina. We have somebody setting up actually groups across Africa. He was another Knight Fellow at Stanford. It's been quite amazing. I mean, I just was trying. I mean, I was in Silicon Valley, wanted to do a startup, and wanted to find people who cared about this. Who cared about the worlds of media and technology. Because I really felt that the larger media companies were all fighting technology companies. I mean, you have like Murdoch actually. Just again a couple days ago on Twitter was lashing out at Google as the pirates of the internet, right? Whereas the technology companies have all this amazing knowledge about how people are interacting online and really thinking amazing ways about this that we should embrace and learn from in the media. I mean, really, the media and technology are inseparable now. The way you publish online is by writing code. So how could you, have a media, site online without knowing how to code or having people who know how to code or think about how to creatively tell stories in new ways, which again are not just taking the print model and taking what's out there, but really embracing new forms of storytelling. So that's really what Hacks and Hackers is all about, not just letting regular journalists, not just the VP of digital at some big company, but getting regular people together, letting them talk about things away from their jobs, getting people to do hackathons where they take a weekend and experiment, doing demo nights where people show off what they're doing, really just kind of taking all these things that in the tech world are normal, all a hackathon, a demo night, all that stuff, and kind of applying it to the media and journalism.
Well, as the Grand Poobah for Hacks Hackers internationally, do you have any advice for our local Denver Boulder group on how we might sort of better leverage our local group, and especially to get more technologists involved? I mean, that seems like the big challenge. That they've all got so many other exciting things they could do, and with the potential of making gobs of money. And journalism, especially on the money angle, may not be quite so appealing. And if you have any thoughts on how to attract more folks to get into the journalism and technology side from the tech sector?
Yeah, no, it's a challenge everywhere, and yeah, we kind of grew like crazy, and now we have to make sure we support these groups everywhere, and we're in the process of being a little more formalized about things, and so we can do that. I mean, I think the interesting thing with technologists that journalists maybe don't get a lot of times is that technologists want to solve really hard problems, that they don't want you to dumb down the problem and say things really simply. I mean, journalists are used to simplifying things and just kind of giving the way of speaking that most people can understand, whereas for technologists, they want like something really hairy, complicated to solve. And so I think just kind of understanding that, and also, I mean, technologists are interested in doing things that get attention, that do have an impact. So I found a lot of people are pretty interested in things around data, around kind of government and open data initiatives. And that seems to draw a pretty diverse crowd of people who are interested in actually, working on projects that have an impact and not just doing another Facebook game or Groupon fun. So I think the chance to really seize on that. I mean, I really do think that hacker types and journalists have a lot in common, and that and that they believe in open information and wanting to make a difference and doing things because they have a mission and feel passionate about it, not just because they can make a lot of money. I mean, I really do think the best like entrepreneurs and hackers and such do things because they're passionate about it. And as a side product, if they do something that's hugely successful, yes, they will make money, but that shouldn't really be what drives you. I mean, I would say, there in Boulder, you do have an amazing community with like tech stars. And actually, yeah, Brad Feld was actually just here in New York. He just popped up at the SOPA protest. He was just speaking there. Trying to get people like that involved, I think, that attracts hackers. To try to really get somebody high profile that they respect. And because, still, the media is what makes these products. The reason Twitter blew up is because all the journalists at mainstream media organizations started using it and writing about it a lot. And then it really took off and people knew what it was. I still think, the mainstream media does have the power to make or break something. And the technologists know that. More and more they realize that as they actually do form real companies. So there is something to offer them in that regard.
All right. Anybody else want to dive in before we run out of time? Bert, I can't actually see you. Your face has been frozen for a while, but we can hear you just fine.
Yeah. I keep trying to stop and restart the video, but it doesn't seem to do anything.
Well, if nobody has anything else, then I guess we could let Bert go, because I'm sure he's got a busy day.
Thanks, Bert.
Gotta go and catch it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Bert.
Thank you.
And this was our first experiment with Google Hangouts. So
Thanks. Yeah, sorry, I can't. I'm waving goodbye.
all right. So we'll shut her down. And thanks again.
All right.
Bye-bye.